as we get ready for this year's Quidditch season, we've called in our in-house Quidditch expert, our Gryffindor House Quidditch correspondent, Abby. Welcome back again for Book 2.
Hi, guys. Thanks. It's good to be here.
Good to have you.
So, tell us a little bit about the Gryffindor Quidditch team this year and their new training regiment that we've heard so much about.
Hi, guys. And hey there, sports fans. It's Abby here, and guess what? Oh, like you didn't already know, it's the most wonderful time of the year. It's finally here, preseason. And this year, our squad is returning fully intact. And if you ain't excited about that, check your pulse, people, because you're probably dead, which around here is perfectly acceptable. This is the stuff of Quidditch captain's dreams. Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, 6-year keeper and Captain Oliver Wood woke his players in the wee hours of the morning with all the enthusiasm and drive we have come to love. Returning chasers representing the ladies of Gryffindor, 3rd year Katie Bell, and the 4th years Alicia Spinnet and Angelina Johnson doing what they do best, scoring goals and making boys cry. Our favorite dynamic duo once again will soar into battle with the promise of wreaking havoc upon those who stand in our way. Beaters George and Fred Weasley bring back that devil-may-care attitude we just can't get enough of. They can't do wrong, and if they do, it's so wrong it's right. And lastly, our little bolty lightning flash on a broom, Harry Potter returns for his sophomore season with the job of capturing that elusive snitch. With the strength and talent this team displayed last year, it's hard not to get excited for this season. No gel time needed, just let's get right to it. Wood woke this morning with a fire blazing in his heart, and while his team may have appeared a little less electrified, keep in mind, folks, athletes are individuals too, and every athlete gets their mind right in different ways. And as Wood lays out the path to total victory this season, we are headed out to our first practice. You can feel the promise and hope of a new season. The slate is clear, and we are ready to go. The start of practice is as you expect, shaking out those jitters, and it seems that Potter has grown a nice little fan base. We aren't even through the first part of warm-ups when it happened. And to describe the mood shift, imagine that sickening feeling that bubbles right up before you're about to lose your lunch. And you know that one with that sudden flash of hotness that covers you and your stomach turns, and you know nothing good is coming from this. Yep, that's the one. And here they come, the most aggravating sight. Slytherins. Need I say more? And as it is clear, even properly reserving field times does not matter if you have Snape. Oh yes, that's right. Professor Snape. Writing notes to void out all efforts expected of every other Quidditch team. And let's add on top of this, Slytherin gets special treatment because, wait for it, it's good, because they have to train their new seeker, Draco Malfoy. I can't make this up. Ludicrous. However, it seems that not only did Malfoy make the team, his dad so graciously outfitted the entire team with Nimbus 2000s and ones. Oh, 2001s. That's right. Could you hear that? That was my eyes rolling. Deep sigh. So all you aspiring Quidditch players out there, keep in mind, to make a house team over at Slytherin, no talent required, just a nice gift of brooms for the entire team. While this does place certain challenges upon our season, we will keep the faith. And as things escalate on the field, 2nd year Hermione Granger, gotta love her, just calling it like she sees it. And to quote her, she says, "At least no one on the Gryffindor team had to buy their way in. They got in on pure talent." And to this poignant observation, Malfoy spits out a nasty retort, one I will not repeat. But please, all you Gryffindors out there, let's let Hermione know we stand with you, and we have your back. And here's to hoping to a better second practice. Back to you guys.
Hello, and welcome to the podcast that must not be named. I am Melissa.
I am Luke.
And we are here discussing Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Chapter 7, Mudbloods and Murmurs. This chapter had 18 pages and was 5.28% of the book. Luke, tell us what happened in Chapter 7.
Sure. Our chapter starts out with Harry trying to avoid Lockhart and Colin, while Ron's broken wand produces quite unreliable magic. At the crack of dawn, Harry is woken up by the Quidditch captain, Oliver Wood. Harry groggily makes his way down to the Quidditch pitch with a Colin Creevey-shaped shadow. The team sleepily sits through Wood's new practice regiment before heading out to put the new strategies into training. The Gryffindors take flight and are quickly joined by the Slytherin Quidditch team. Wood could not believe this, as he had booked the pitch for his team. Apparently, Snape had given the Slytherins special permission to share the pitch for training their new seeker, Draco Malfoy, who has bought his way onto the team with all new brooms. Ron and Hermione join the Gryffindor team on the pitch, and after some jawing back and forth between the teams, Malfoy uses what turns out to be quite a foul slur, mudblood. At this, Ron tries to curse Draco, which backfires, and Ron ends up puking slugs at Hagrid's for a while. We learn that the term is meant to say that Hermione has dirty blood for being Muggle-born. Hagrid comforts Hermione. Hagrid goes on to show the trio the engorged pumpkins he's been growing, while mentioning meeting Ginny, whose crush on Harry seems to be quite apparent. Our trio returns to the castle, where Harry and Ron are given their detention assignments, where Harry will be answering fan mail with our new favorite celebrity, and Ron will be cleaning trophies in the trophy room. After several hours of Lockhart's celebrity school, Harry hears a voice, a terrifying, cold, bodiless voice, which Lockhart seems to miss. Harry leaves and waits up in his four-poster to tell Ron about the voice.
So this chapter, we had two name mentions. The first one was Gladys Gudgeon.
Gladys Gudgeon.
And Veronica Smethly. Veronica Smethly.
A couple of
That's a rough one.
Lockhart's fan club members, I believe.
Yes, we're writing to them. There were no new location introductions. That's not true.
We went to Lockhart's office.
We went to Lockhart's office. That's the first time I believe we've been in the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher's office.
Yes,
and it
that's
was
correct.
Decorated with pictures of Lockhart.
Yeah, some of them were even signed by himself.
He's special. The Magicabulary includes the Nimbus 2001, the Broom, the Clean Sweep 5, the insult Mudblood, along with the term pure blood, which would be the opposite. Kelpies, which are a water spirit, the engorgement charm, and the special award for services to the school.
All right, getting into the chapter illustration, we can see that Ron seems to not be feeling so hot, and it looks like he has a cauldron full of hot, fresh slugs.
That's disgusting.
That's pretty gross. That's a lot of slugs.
There's a lot of slugs. That's much bigger than I had pictured.
Yeah, that's pretty disturbing.
Imagine all those coming out of his stomach.
It kind of gets back to maybe someone should say something about Ron's wand being broken. But let's go ahead and move on to our notes for this chapter.
Right. Luke, what did you think?
So I thought, I really love that the picture that Colin took of Harry and Colin, or the picture that Colin took of Harry and Lockhart. Harry is really, really, really trying to get out of that picture. And it's, Lockhart in the picture that's like clawing him back and pulling him back. And I think it's just pretty fitting for the sentiment of when the photo was taken.
Well, I called it's photo Harry being resistant to photo Lockhart.
Right.
Kind of like real Harry is resistant to real Lockhart. I like that the pictures show the true emotion of the event.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting, that the magic that goes into creating a moving photo takes into account not just who the photo is, but also, not just their visage and like does random things with it, but it actually takes like their emotion or their actual thought
and personality
into account.
Yes.
And replays that almost kind of like a GIF. It's very much like that. It seems like,
except that I don't know if that actually happened in.
Yeah, I don't think it did.
It's like a GIF of what you wish would have happened in the moment. Right.
Or what the camera saw the actual intention of what was happening. It's really interesting. And do you think, and maybe we can get into this another time, because this is kind of a big topic of the moving photos and moving paintings and things like that. Do you think, like, what's the span of the personality of that image? Because we see in the first journey from platform 9 3/4 in book 1 that the chocolate frog card of Dumbledore leaves. You know, like his image leaves because,
Right.
and Ron says, well, you can't expect him to hang around all day.
And the portraits in the halls of Hogwarts,
They're like almost all the time, but they can also go between different frames. I don't know if we've seen that yet.
I don't know
I don't
either.
think we have. So maybe some of this gets put off to a unrestricted section to talk about. But I find that whole topic of the moving artwork, maybe is the generic term, pretty hard to explain overall, or knowing the limits of it is pretty vast. So we'll come back to that. I kind of, as usual, since I did the summary, I didn't have a whole lot of notes. I think most of my notes went to the 5 burning questions, which we'll get to.
So I have one that kind of jumps off what you were talking about with Colin. Colin is the extremely talkative shadow.
Yeah.
Like,
he's pretty eccentric.
I would say he's very outgoing, and I think he's very curious and wants to learn things. I don't think he has good social skills. Like, he doesn't read a situation well enough to know where he maybe isn't wanted. And I get how uncomfortable Harry is, and that Colin is sort of it's forcing Harry to be famous.
Blatantly.
Colin is the first student at Hogwarts to force Harry into the famous Harry Potter role, because up until this point in first year, everybody kind of just ignored him and he went about his day, and he was just, plain old Harry the Quidditch player, which he had more infamy at school for being the Quidditch player in first year than
to the students,
right? And he wasn't really around adults in the wizarding world that much in that first year, but Colin's the first one that's really like forcing this famousness upon him consistently and having to come to terms with that.
Right.
So I get how uncomfortable this is for Harry. However, I also think Harry maybe needs to take a step back and remember what it was like to be a first year. Because Colin isn't a first year like Ron. Colin's a first year like Harry. He's a muggle born. He has no idea. His dad was a milkman. So Harry should remember what it was like to not know about Quidditch and not know about Hogwarts and not know about moving pictures or anything. Sorry. And maybe give Colin a little bit of what he's asking for, not just keep trying to blow him off. Like, really sit down, explain it to him like Wood did to him. Maybe Colin needs somebody to take him under his wing a little bit. And I know Harry didn't ask for it, but you're the guy he's seeking out. So be the older student.
Be the mentor.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes into, the reason why I always disliked sophomores. No offense, sophomores, but because in sophomore year, you're like, oh, good. I'm so glad I'm not like the little kid anymore, which Harry is obviously feeling. But you don't realize that it's also your job to help students who are younger than you. Juniors and seniors, they kind of get that. If you're in an elementary school that's K-5, your 4th and 5th graders, they go help the kindergarten first graders. First graders want nothing to do with kindergartners because they don't realize that they're starting new and need help. They just see it as, okay, but I don't need to do that anymore.
Sure. I get what you're saying, and I agree for the most part.
Yes.
But I think this is the transition period to becoming that experienced student.
Right.
And it is tough. It's tough for that role that you got used to for your very first year, especially for someone who didn't grow up in a wizarding family. I mean, that's a typical school thing as well, but Harry's still getting used to what it's like to be in the wizard
but then
world.
Shouldn't he know?
He should.
This is what it feels like. Here, let me help you.
And so my thought to this as well is maybe there should be a Hogwarts mentor or shadow or big brother system that's set up and a little bit more formal than, hey, you're in the same house, so it just figures itself out. That being maybe the 5th, 6th, and 7th years all get, assigned a first year that comes in, that is a little bit dependent on whether there's about the same number of students in each year, which I think is probably fairly consistent. We got into that a little bit on how this might be a little bit lower enrollment than general now for this whole group of students all the way through.
Almost like an RA system.
Right.
Like a resident assistant, more than a prefect. And I think that's what the prefects are supposed to do, but if you've only
there's just so many students. There's just not enough for 2 people in in each
to connect with the entire
year level.
first year
Right.
class.
I think some students need a little extra attention, and maybe Colin needs a little extra attention.
Maybe.
Because he's very, very curious and he's very, very outgoing, which I think
And
speaks to his.
He's a Muggleborn and doesn't know. Maybe that should be part of it too. Like, hey, here are your kids who came from wizarding families. Here are
Right,
the
like
kids who
Ron.
don't.
I mean, he'll be fine. Like he
thank God-
knows, he gets it, and he's got
Thank God
older brothers that
Hermione
are there.
and Harry had Ron last year. It
Yeah.
sounds like Colin doesn't have a Ron.
Right. Yeah. And maybe, it's just one of those, hey, toughen up. Like, you'll get it. It just,
Right.
you'll be fine. So maybe I think it's a little unfair to throw that all on Harry, but I agree that he shouldn't be so averse to standing up and being the guy to help Colin.
Right. Well, and
Because Colin clearly is asking for it and
Right.
asking for the help,
And I
and he's
think-
picked Harry to
and
be
I
that
think
guy.
Colin is asking too much. I do. I am not saying that Colin is making a good choice and that Harry is being bad by ignoring him. I'm just saying I feel like there needs to be a balance for both of them.
Exactly. Yeah, I
Harry
agree.
needs to have just a little sympathy
Yeah.
towards Colin. And I feel like if he had just a little sympathy towards Colin and gave Colin a little bit of what he's asking, Colin might back off. Or even to say to him, Colin, look, like, let's sit down. I can't do this now. Let's sit down and talk about it later. But I also, like, I'm just a kid and I need you to, like, give
Meet
some
me
space.
halfway, somewhere in the middle.
Of course, we're also adults and we're talking about 11 and 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
And they're not going to think about it that way.
Yeah, it's a little tougher to retroact or not to in the moment kind of see
right.
these things.
Well, and sort of be rational
Yeah.
when, your emotions are like, I'm so annoyed, leave me alone. So,
Right, that's fair though.
All right. Oliver Wood. I'm sure our Abby. Well, so Oliver Wood, his eyes had a crazed enthusiasm. I think it's interesting that Harry only notices that this particular morning because I feel like that pretty much sums up Oliver's entire personality. Don't you think?
I think he's got a little extra vigor this year, with a whole new training regimen. I think it really comes down to they lost last year. And they won every match that Harry was in.
They shouldn't have lost.
They shouldn't have lost. And I think that kind of set the tone for leading into this year. We've got the pieces here.
Right.
We've just got to make sure that we implement them and use them as well as we can. So his motivation is just through the roof. And it's, he's asking a lot of his players, that's for sure.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And it's a school. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
that's fine.
I'm more of the Hermione Granger when it comes to sports. So, I get it, but it's a school. So, school as opposed to sports as your primary focus.
School is mainly just to play sports. That's
All
not
right.
entirely true.
And it's not true even a little bit.
Oh, in some parts.
Oh, in some parts. And for some kids, like,
Right. If that's what you do, and that's your motivation to keep going to school, do it.
having a child who that kind of thing is a motivating thing for her.
Right.
I believe in that entirely.
It's all about rewarding A while expecting A.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
All right. So then we have Ron and his backfiring wand, which we've talked about.
Poor kid.
But-
literally poor.
No,
That was a poor joke.
burn.
That was rude. Poor Ron. Emotionally as
I'm
well.
literally rolling my eyes at Luke across the table because
Hey,
I
at least
think it was terrible.
smarmy Luke
Shh.
Gilderoy
no.
Lockhart isn't
Bad.
here this episode
Oh no.
yet.
Okay. So Malfoy's response to Ron was to be on all fours on the ground, banging his fists.
Just rolling on the floor laughing.
Like it says, Malfoy was on all fours, banging. I'm going to find the actual quote. Yeah, here's the quote. Malfoy was on all fours, banging the ground with his fist. I don't understand why it's that funny. Like his response.
It was a little over the top.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't fit the level of the action.
Right.
Like that's funnier and stranger than burping up slugs. Burping up slugs, I kind of understand, but Malfoy on the ground laughing like that, like I thought Malfoy was like too cool. Like, it just doesn't fit his personality. Even like the "I'm gonna laugh at you" thing. And I've never noticed that line before because it's one sentence, and so you kind of breeze through it in the middle of the paragraph. But I stopped on it this time. I'm like, that just is really odd.
Yeah, it's a little awkward. Like, I get that the whole Slytherin team is laughing at this.
Right.
it's just, I think he's trying to show off to his new teammates that, hey, I also think that our mutual enemy is totally pathetic. So he's really, really laying it on thick, maybe, to get in the good graces of his new teammates, not just because Hermione just called him out for buying his way on the team. Like, in front of everybody, which everyone knew, but they probably didn't talk about.
No.
So maybe he feels embarrassed about that. So he's really trying to, really compensate by taking that joke to the next level.
Okay. I wonder what happened to the Seeker from last year. Like, I wonder if he, graduated
if he actually replaced him.
Or if, they literally said, okay, you're out because this guy's buying us brooms.
Yeah, we don't know what years
the
other Slytherin team
I know
were
that Marcus
last
Flint
year.
was a 6th year last year.
Okay.
Which means he should be a 7th year this year.
That's fair enough.
That's all I know, though.
Yeah. But isn't he around later on?
Oh, he comes back in book 3.
Yeah.
Because, he's in book 3.
They clearly say he's a 6th year?
Clearly say 6th year.
Okay, perfect.
And she actually addresses it later on.
That
She's like,
he failed a year?
well, she goes, now, there's 2 explanations. One could be that I misspoke and I had it wrong and I didn't have notes. She goes, but I really like to think that more likely he failed a year and had to go back again.
I'm surprised he's still eligible for Quidditch then.
We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, we will.
All right. And clap. I kind of wish, Colin's over there snapping pictures. I really want to see the picture of, Ron burping up the slugs and then that movie. I mean, maybe that was the illustration, but, the moving picture of Ron and
of how
slugs.
it kind of exaggerates things a little bit.
That sounds funny.
Yeah, I agree.
And then, so they drag him to Hagrid's house. And Hermione sort of making an excuse for Ron, which is funny because Hermione doesn't make excuses, that yes, it backfired with a broken wand, and that's a difficult curse to work at the best of times. What curse is it?
I think it's...
is it a burping up slugs curse?
That's what I think it is, and that it just backfires and hits him instead. Similar to whenever in book 1 they're making the forgetfulness potion for the exam, and I think it's Neville forgets what to do.
Right.
Is that what I can't remember.
I think that was a quiz or something.
No, it's the cure for boils.
Oh,
and then someone gets splashed with it and gets covered in boils. That whole thing. And it's kind of like the thing that you're doing has to be a part of what it turns into.
Okay.
And this one just backfires on Ron, this spell.
So technically he did it right.
Yeah,
he
he
just
did.
went the wrong way.
Yeah, so that's pretty competent of Ron.
If Hermione thinks
she
it's a hard
thinks
spell.
it's a difficult spell or curse,
Or
and he
is she
performs it
saying-
well, it just...
Or is she saying it's difficult, for you?
It's a relatively difficult thing.
I got it. I'll be fine. But
Yeah.
for your typical 2nd year.
What do you think the actual incantation is for the curse for burping up slugs?
I don't know, but I feel like the word sluggo should be in there.
Aloha sluggo. Hello slugs.
There you go. Or
Unlock
burpendium sluggo.
There you go.
Burpendium sluggo. There you go. Burp up slugs.
It almost sounds like perpetual slugs too, which is perfect.
Which kind of works. There you go. So then they're talking about Lockhart, and I love Hagrid's disdain for Lockhart. In general, Hagrid's sense of humor is spot on in this chapter.
Book 2 Hagrid is wonderful.
Book 2 Hagrid is funny and just snarky enough that it's teasing snarky.
Oh yeah.
And never wants to see divulge information that he shouldn't have to our heroes.
Yeah, his character seems to have found its stride in this portion of the book so far, at least.
Yes.
We'll keep an eye on it, clearly, because we have to. But I definitely think, his sense of humor, his teasing Harry, is so funny. It's
good.
legitimately so funny.
So funny. So they're talking, and they find out that Lockhart was the only applicant. So see, he did divulge. They did divulge information, but I feel like this is information that's more like, dude, this is ridiculous. Let me tell you.
Right.
Not in a.
It's a criticizing HR, not a let's risk everything.
Let's teach 11-year-olds how to defeat Dark Lords.
Right. Or get past the only protection that
right
was still holding up to the point that we know is clearly being trying to get through.
So Lockhart was the only applicant, and honestly, every time I read, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's horrible. But then I realized, well, thank goodness he was the only applicant, because could you imagine if they had hired him over somebody else? Like if there were 2 people and Lockhart was the better choice?
Right. Like either one,
How bad would that
who
guy
was the
have had to
other?
be?
Yeah, who was the other teacher?
Right.
And yikes. Or two, who's in charge of HR? Like if the other guy was a qualified, competent wizard or witch, like who's making these decisions?
That kind of goes with my second thought. Like, let's think about it. The last guy who had this job had a Voldy on the back of his
Voldy
head. So
head,
it's not
yeah.
like there's a high bar set for this position in the first
Seems
place.
like he got the job before the Voldy head, but he also kept
Maybe.
the job. Well, I think so.
Yeah,
he
okay.
was
All right.
so, but he clearly was able to keep his job, and probably would still be there if Harry hadn't killed him. But
Right. If he hadn't died because of Voldemort's attack on
yeah,
Harry.
if Harry hadn't killed him, that's fine.
Yeah, pretty much.
But we got into that last book. So
So yeah, I just like, man, let's picture the guy who lost out to Lockhart on the job.
yeah, he's probably got 2 Voldy heads.
I don't even know if that's going to disqualify him at this point.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it might be more reason to hire him, I guess.
Maybe he has more books.
Maybe he had too many books.
Yeah.
In his
All right.
library, there just wasn't enough shelf space in the Defense Against Dark Arts teacher office.
Oh my gosh. And then Hagrid, one more thought about Hagrid. Teasing Harry about Ginny looking for him and wanting a signed photo is awesome. I love it.
It's so funny. You know, why haven't I gotten one of these signed photos?
Yeah.
Has Lockhart been going around saying that again?
I know somebody who wouldn't say no to a signed Harry Potter photo.
Yeah. It goes right along with the don't let Lockhart hear you say Harry Potter fan club.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, like I think they're definitely playing up the famous Harry Potter part between Colin and Ginny and Lockhart, and even like Hagrid giving him trouble about these things. It's definitely not. It sounds like a grandpa. It's definitely not like as big as it could be, but I like that it's starting because last year we didn't really see much of that at all.
There were so many other things going on for Harry just getting introduced himself that it might have been there. We just didn't see it because Harry might not have realized it. But now that he is this sophomore type second year, he's a little more able to notice these things that are not normal because he understands what's normal a little bit better now. So his relative experience has changed.
Right.
And so he's more perceptive to it.
He can see more things going on around him.
Right. And he's got Lockhart there really, really putting it at the front of everyone's mind,
frustrating for
especially
Harry.
Harry's.
I like the fact that JK doesn't shy away from her wizarding version of racism. I think I'm going to go a little serious, so stop me if it's boring. I think that it's really important for kids to realize that this exists in the world.
Have exposure to it
without
where they
it-
might.
Right, without it being so blatant about race or gender or any of those kinds of things that you can experience, those biases. It's a safe way to introduce it, but to talk about it really seriously. Mm-hmm. And I like that. I like that it helps to sort of broaden the sort of ideas that they might not always get just because life experience may not have allowed for it.
Right.
I've actually read like a lot of posts and things, and it's like, no, I really think reading these books have helped me to have a broader view of the world and to have a more open mind about different kinds of people and how we treat people who are different from us because of the themes she writes into it. And it's right here in the second book. You know, it's not always the later stuff. It's right here. Book 2, still the kids' book, but it's a safe way to do it without kind of raising anybody's alarms.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and say something that I don't necessarily agree with, but this is almost the, well, this is introducing a thought that someone could have against that. So again, I don't necessarily agree with this. I'm just saying this thought is out there. The shining a light on a topic like this can almost introduce somebody to noticing these differences where they might not normally. So it's almost the lack of ignorance causes more of the awareness of the negative side of it. I think people make that assumption
I think
that that's
adults
possible.
make that assumption.
Right. Children don't.
No.
I think shining awareness on it, it does create the, that's not fair mentality, and encouraging not shining a light on it, which I think some people do, with the thought that shining a light on it creates more of a chance for that to happen, is by not shining a light on it, you create the ignorance and the, hold on, I'm trying to word this in a way that makes most sense. So basically, by shining a light on it, you create two new options. Either someone's ignorant of it and don't ever experience this, and that's just fine because they don't perpetuate it as well, or you create ignorance that then doubles down on not knowing this and makes them actually fall into that way worse.
I'm going to see if I can recap.
Yeah.
You're saying that there are some people who say, you know what, I don't want my kids exposed to this. So what I think you're saying is, some people are saying, no, don't tell my kids about that because I want to protect them.
Yes.
If you protect your kids, one of two things could happen. One, they never know about it, and that makes them, quote unquote, safer. Or two, because they don't know about it, whenever they do encounter it, they start thinking, well, that's not really true. And then they sort of perpetuate that ignorance.
That's exactly what I'm getting at.
Right.
Yes.
Whereas those people who are like, well, if you show this to my kids
And then actually teach them
and about
and encourage them
to think
what's
about
actually fair to other people.
They're going to they're afraid that their kids will develop a negative idea about it. Like, well, that's okay. I can do that. My thought is though, because I've taught kids for a long time and I have taught about segregation of schools and civil rights to first and second graders. And I remember having and I teach in a very, racially diverse school district. In fact, my school district is one of only 2 in the entire state that doesn't have a dominant race. We have, it's pretty equitable among African Americans and Caucasians. And then we have a couple other types. We have, several Hispanics, populations and things like that. So we don't have a dominant. So when I'm teaching about segregation and they're looking around the room and literally it's half and half, and they're like, I don't understand.
Right. Like, how is this
what do you
not
mean
just
I wouldn't
normal?
be? And to try and teach that that's how people thought, you watch those kids try to grapple with that. Kids know what's right and wrong. They knew that was wrong. They didn't need an adult to tell them that they weren't ready to hear that was wrong. They
Right.
already knew it. You talk about the water equity and you talk about water equity in Flint, Michigan. We taught about that to our 4th graders last year. Does it affect the 4th graders here in St. Louis, Missouri? No.
Not today.
Not today, but at the same time, those people haven't had clean water in over a year. Shouldn't 4th graders know about that? Because in 10 years, those are going to be the people who can fix it. And I'd rather have them at 10 and 9 be thinking of ways to fix it rather than be sheltered from it. And in 10 years think, that's not my problem.
I agree. And, I agree that it's also really interesting and good that JK does start introducing something along those lines. And I like this is almost a safe version of introducing this kind of idea, like you were getting at. Of inequity between two different or, multiple different types of people. When you start actually assigning classes or other distinguishing characteristics to people.
And what kind of social justice exists within that society.
Right, or social injustice, yeah.
Right, to either combat it or injustice to perpetuate it.
Yeah, I agree.
Without bringing up the actual topics we live with in our world today to offend anybody outright.
Yep. I think it's probably enough on that a little bit right now.
Although if you follow JK on Twitter, she's going to do it blatantly.
Yeah, Social Justice Warrior 101.
Yeah. All right. So Hermione, when they get assigned the detentions, she has this, well, you did break the school rules expression. It's such a big sister thing.
It really harkens back to beginning of the book Hermione. Beginning of book 1 Hermione, which we haven't seen in a while.
No, but she's still there.
She is. And I like that it's brought up. It's not just, and then Hermione was just cool with breaking the rules and a troublemaker from now on. I like that it's still, she is hard set on this is right, this is wrong, because the boys, they need that levelness every once in a while.
Oh yeah. The big sister, I need to get you boys in line.
Right. You need someone to set that tone and be consistent with it.
Yes.
And it's good that the boys have that. I think they'd be just fine without it, but they're better off having it.
Yes. All right. So my last thought is, so there's this voice. That's it. There's just a random voice that only Harry can hear. That's weird.
That's a bit weird.
Right. I mean, even for Hogwarts, that seems a little odd.
Yeah. And how does Lockhart not hear it?
He's probably too full of himself.
Is this just in Harry's head? Is this, he needs a more complicated life.
Right.
Is this something that Lockhart was just actively ignoring or so distracted that he didn't notice?
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was funny. There's this voice. It's so random. Yeah. All right, Luke, let's go ahead and get into your 5 burning question.
Question 1. How does one smirk all over their face? It says, Draco Malfoy walked up smirking all over his face. Is that like Irish eyes are smiling? Like he's smirking so big that his eyes are smirking too? Is that what it's getting at?
I feel like the word smirk might be written in ink all over his skin, across his forehead, on his eyelid. No, I think it's just one of those like big giant grins that light up your eyes and your face, and you're like, haha, this is hysterical. But yeah, I like the description.
The word smirk almost always comes up with Draco or Snape.
Yeah.
So it seems to be a Slytherin trait to be one that smirks. A Slytherin that smirks.
Smirking Slytherin.
Yeah, so Slytherins and their smirks, keep an eye on it. It comes up pretty often.
I will.
Question 2. Why do you think Hagrid didn't get a signed photo from Harry?
Because he didn't have the $10.99 required.
$10.99?
Money. For the low fee of $10.99, you too can receive a
plus
signed
shipping
photo.
handling,
plus shipping and handling,
which is covered by Outpost, I would imagine.
True. Yeah, that's probably why he didn't have enough cash to cover the cost.
Yeah, Outpost. It's pretty expensive, I think.
I know.
Bodiless voice. We just kind of talked about this, but what's that all about?
I'm gonna go with ghosts.
Okay, that could be. We know that they can kind of hang out, going through walls, and
maybe it's Peeves.
Maybe it's just
for fun,
just teasing, just picking on Harry.
Sure.
Okay, that's
I love
better
Peeves,
than anything
and I
else.
don't feel like we've seen him enough. I never feel like we see him enough, and I think that's one of the few things the movie got wrong.
Peeves and the boy who lived. There's another story.
No, I don't even care about his version with Harry Potter. I just want to know like
his story.
Just yeah.
I agree. I think Peeves is
awesome.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Question 4. Polishing all the trophies in the trophy room or helping Lockhart with fan mail. Which are you choosing?
I dislike Lockhart, but I dislike I dislike manual labor and cleaning even more.
Muggle cleaning?
I really do. So I'm going to go with...
Which Ron says he's very bad at, and Harry says, I've had a lot of practice with Muggle cleaning. Right. I'll trade you.
I actually would probably pick Lockhart's fan mail because I can sit in a chair and I can write and I can ignore people with the best of them. Just ask my kids.
I ignore you for most of the show, so
I don't know what you're saying right now.
your mic's been on mute the whole time. This has just been the Luke show today. So I have that power in this studio.
Oh, I think it's all going to your head.
Oh, it's all in my head, that's for sure. All these voices. So you're picking fan mail with Lockhart?
I am picking fan mail. How about you?
I think I agree.
Especially if I can bring my earbuds.
Yeah, I'm sure you wouldn't. Well, you wouldn't be able to because we know that Muggle technologies don't work at Hogwarts.
It's horrible.
Which I think we should revisit at the 5-chap recap for a couple ideas on that. Let's make a note on that. I've got a couple thoughts on that for this book specifically.
On Muggle
technology working at Hogwarts. So join us in our unrestricted section for a little further detail on my thoughts on that. And thank you for writing that down for me. It's easier on that than it is out here. I appreciate it. Last burning question of Chapter 7. Will Hagrid ever get in trouble for using magic when he's really not supposed to?
No.
You think he's just protected at Hogwarts?
I think...
Or is it just that easy to get away with?
I think Dumbledore has, like, a special thing for Hagrid that... Hagrid's not going to get in trouble because Dumbledore's got his back.
So he's protected at Hogwarts because of Dumbledore, or he's just protected in general because of Dumbledore?
Protected in general because of Dumbledore. I don't think it's that he's at Hogwarts.
He's got Dumbledore attorney at magic?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and Dumbledore's powerful enough to, like, be able to get you out of something.
And I think this also comes down to just because you were expelled from Hogwarts, is that what makes you a qualified wizard? Like, you have to get through that, which we haven't really come across in these books to this point. So maybe we'll revisit that idea at some point. But I mean, there's nothing saying if you're magic and just because you don't go to Hogwarts and finish out that you shouldn't legally in the wizarding world be prevented from doing magic, especially if you are clearly able to and you're not doing it in front of muggles and you're not doing it in a way that jeopardizes the Wizarding Secrecy Act and you're over age.
Unless you have to have reached a level of
competency.
Yeah, like
or ability.
You have to be able to do certain things, and if you haven't mastered these certain things, which you do by X school year, then you can't I don't know.
But we've seen, untrained wizards can't
Or-
really control it. Are they going to be punished if they're over age and got expelled? Say Harry got expelled and he was still accidentally. So what if Harry was expelled from Hogwarts this year and he was continually accidentally performing magic?
I think by this point he probably has enough control over it because he knows what it is.
So he would be responsible
Yes.
and culpable
Yes.
if he did magic.
That broke the statute of secrecy and if he was underage. Whereas when he becomes not over,
When he's of age
Whatever.
and he's in a not muggle aware area, is that illegal? Which is what Hagrid's doing.
Sounds like it because it sounds like if you get expelled, the punishment for expulsion
Is breaking your wand.
right is the inability to do magic anymore. Like that's a pretty stiff punishment. But at the same time, like if you think about if you're convicted of whatever, like you don't get to vote ever. And I don't know exactly the laws on that, but like I know there are things that if this happens, you lose your certain rights. That's what this is. If you do this, and I realize we're looking at it as, but it's just expelled from school, but it's expelled from the school of witchcraft and wizardry that teaches you how to live as this. And if you have done something to violate your rights in the school that teaches you basically how to be the citizen, then you lose the rights of citizenship, sort of.
Yeah, this is kind of a big one. I don't know. There's a lot of holes I think that
But I don't
we
think
haven't.
Hagrid will get in trouble.
I agree.
I want to meet somebody else who's been expelled.
Yeah, that's or someone who's been in the area that can or can't do magic for some reason,
Right.
or not. All right, let's get into our chapter's superlatives. Melissa, what was your favorite line this chapter?
I think my favorite line was when they were in Hagrid's hut and they were talking about the insult that Malfoy had done, and Hermione was upset, and Hagrid looks at Hermione and he says, "And they haven't invented a spell our Hermione can't do," said Hagrid proudly, making Hermione go a brilliant shade of magenta. I think that is exactly what she needed to hear. Because even though she wasn't, you could see she wasn't like visibly upset and shaking, but I mean, it's not easy for that to hear that and have to like work your emotions through that you've been called this. And I think he says just the right thing to make her feel better.
It's that vote of confidence in her that she didn't realize she needed.
Yes.
Hagrid's very good at giving that piece of emotional
Yes.
advice before either Harry or Hermione realize that they need it.
And he does it in a way that's not parental, so you don't feel like, oh, you have to say this because you're my mom or my teacher. Like,
Right. He genuinely feels this
Yes.
way. He doesn't have a reason to soften up, or get on her good side or try to protect her. He's just telling her. And I think this goes along with the social justice warrior stuff that we were talking about a little bit ago, where she's never been exposed to this, I'm sure. She's never been exposed to anything remotely like being subjugated in this way. So I like that he takes the opportunity to kind of nip that in the bud and show her how ridiculous that is and how it doesn't even apply to her, like at all. Like even if there was something to it, it clearly doesn't apply to her. Not that it applies to any of them, but it helps her rationalize in a way that she can just put down the entire thing that much quicker. And I'm interested to see where that goes in her character growth.
yes. What was your favorite line?
My favorite line was, "But perhaps the Gryffindor team will be able to raise some money, raise some gold, and get new brooms too. You could raffle off those clean sweep fives. I expect a museum would bid for them."
Oh, he's so mean.
Malfoy. Just, that's a good burn. That is a
Great burn.
good dig. And I like that he's actually funny for once. Like,
Yeah.
raffling him off. I mean, yeah, you could buy your whole team brooms if you raffle off those old dusters.
We've had some really interesting Malfoy experiences this book. More than first book.
Yeah, he's definitely becoming more of a dynamic character, a
Yes.
more relevant character, other than just being, oh, I don't like Harry Potter for
Right.
whatever
Thank you for the update.
reason.
Right.
Like, this is actually getting into more of the, I don't like him for these reasons, and I'm better than a lot of people for these other reasons. And I like not necessarily how he's growing, but I like that he's getting some growth.
All right.
All right.
Then who is your chapter MVP?
My chapter MVP is Oliver Wood. His commitment to team growth and hard work is commendable. and I love his enthusiasm as the team captain and coach.
Okay. My honorable mention was Hagrid for saying the right thing at the right time.
Yeah, definitely.
The whole chapter.
Definitely. I think he is a very strong consideration for being the MVP on this one.
Yes, I agree.
I just wanted to give a good shout out to Oliver as well. But Hagrid...
To his intense and well thought out plan.
Yeah. The only thing maybe Oliver should have prepped or given some warning to the team. Hey, we're getting up very early in these next couple mornings.
In his defense, he could have sent a letter and Dobby Mayo kept it from Harry.
You know, that's true. But okay. Yeah, in the off season?
Yes.
In during the summer holidays?
Yes. Here's our training schedule.
But you think
I don't put that past Oliver.
When Harry was at the Burrow that the twins would have mentioned that, but they don't care.
They don't care. Exactly.
They don't have to. They're the naturally talented ones that don't need to care about training.
No, they don't.
All right.
Of course, so is Harry.
Right. So those three, sleep in, take a load off.
Let's get those girls out there, man.
Yeah, they need to get their time on the pitch.
Girls.
Come on, girls, work harder.
Ugh, girls. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode. Don't forget that you can find us in a variety of places. You can tweet at us.
Hang on.
You can tweet at us at not named.
Not yet. I'm going to have you say something here in a minute, okay?
Right.
Wait, not yet.
You can tweet at us at not named podcast. You can email us at the podcast that must not be named at gmail.com. You can find us online at thepodcastthat.com.
Subscribe and rate us on iTunes. Leave a comment on YouTube. We appreciate it.
Join us next week when we discuss Chapter 8.
The Death Day Party.
Stay imaginary.
Thanks.
Can you say stay imaginary in the mic?
Stay imaginary in the
No, just say stay imaginary.